During lunch, the police walked into the cafeteria and called my name in front of everyone. 2 officers in full uniform stood at the entrance scanning the room. The taller one spoke into the microphone the lunch monitor handed him. "Is Avery Kingston present?" Every head turned toward me. My fork clattered against my tray. My best friend Mara grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "What did you do?" she whispered. "I didn't do anything," I said. But my voice shook because 3 days ago I'd found $3,000 cash in my locker, just sitting there in a brown envelope with my name on it. No note, no explanation. I'd taken it home and hidden it under my mattress because I was too scared to tell anyone. The officer's eyes found mine across the crowded cafeteria. He pointed directly at me. "You, come with us. Now." Someone's phone flashed. Another student yelled that I must have finally gotten caught for something. The something that made my blood run cold because I had that money at home right now. Money I hadn't stolen but couldn't explain. They didn't handcuff me, but the shorter officer gripped my arm hard enough to bruise. Principal Davison stood outside his office looking at me like I was a stranger. $15,000, Avery, from 6 different deposits over 4 weeks? How could you? 15,000? I only found 3. The police car was right out front where everyone could see. They put me in back and I watched students press against windows. My phone buzzed. Mara texting. "What the fuck is happening? Everyone's saying you stole money?" More texts flooded in. Then one from an unknown number. "Don't say anything about what you found. Trust no one." My hands started shaking. At the station, Detective Walsh threw a folder on the table. 6 deposit bags. Your fingerprints on every single one. Your student ID accessed the safe 6 times when money disappeared. And we've got you on camera. She slid photos across. Me filing papers in the office. Me standing near the safe. Me carrying a deposit bag to Principal Davison's desk. All normal things I did as a student aide. But the dates matched when money vanished. "I work in that office," I said. "Of course my fingerprints are on stuff." She leaned forward. "Explain Thursday at 3:15 p.m. You accessed the safe. Took $3,000. Left. We have it all on camera." I wasn't there Thursday at 3:15. I had track practice. The whole team saw me. Walsh smiled like she'd been waiting for this. "Funny, because we have footage of someone in your hoodie with your ID card opening that safe, unless you can be in 2 places at once." My lawyer, Mr. Brennan, showed up after 4 hours. He looked at the evidence and went pale. "This is bad, Avery. Really bad. They've got solid proof. But I didn't do it," I said. "Someone's setting me up." He asked who would do that and why. I didn't have an answer. Mom picked me up crying. In the car, she asked if I took the money. The fact that she had to ask destroyed something in me. When we got home, I went straight to my room and pulled the envelope from under my mattress. The $3,000 was still there. Exactly $3,000. If I'd stolen $15,000, why would I only have 3? I took photos of the envelope and the bills. Then I noticed something. The envelope had a small logo in the corner. Riverside Bank. The same bank the school used. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the unknown text. "Don't say anything about what you found." Whoever sent it knew about the money in my locker, which meant they put it there, which meant they were framing me. But why? At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. "Check your school email." Evidence they're hiding? I opened my laptop. In my spam folder was an email sent Friday night. Subject: final payment. The body just said, "Job done. Remaining balance attached." There was a spreadsheet attached showing 6 transactions. Each one matched a date money disappeared from school. And next to my name was $15,000, paid in full. I screenshot everything and sent it to Mr. Brennan immediately. He called me at 6 a.m. asking where this came from. I explained about the unknown number. He said this could help prove a setup, but we needed to find out who sent it. At school that morning, everyone stared. Someone had spray-painted "thief" on my locker. Principal Davison called me to his office before first period. He said I was suspended pending investigation. That hurt worse than the arrest because it made it real. Like the school believed I did this. Walking out, I saw the office aide who worked with me, Natasha. She looked away fast when I tried to make eye contact. In the parking lot, I sat in my car trying not to cry. That's when I noticed Natasha walking to her car 3 spaces away. She was on her phone and I heard her say, "I did exactly what you told me. Used her ID card. Wore her hoodie. Nobody suspects anything." My entire body went cold. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Natasha kept talking. "The money's in her locker like you said. She probably found it by now. And with her prints all over those deposit bags from regular work, she's perfect." She paused. "Yeah, I know. Once she's convicted, we split the $12,000 you kept. This was genius." She hung up and drove away. I sat there shaking. Natasha had framed me. But who was she talking to? I sent the recording to Mr. Brennan immediately. He called back within minutes saying this was incredible evidence, but we needed to know who else was involved. I texted the unknown number. "I know Natasha did this. Who are you?" The response came fast. "Someone who knows the truth. Check the school's financial records. Ask who has access." I drove to the public library and used their computers to search the school's financial reports. They were public record. I found the audit from last year and started reading. The business manager who handled all deposits was listed as Mrs. Delacroix. She'd been there 15 years. I searched her name with Riverside High and found an article from 6 months ago. Small paragraph buried in the local news. Mrs. Delacroix's daughter had been arrested for embezzlement from her previous job, released on bail pending trial. Legal fees had to be massive. I pulled up the school directory, Mrs. Delacroix's extension, her office location. She was the one with safe access. She handled all deposits, and she needed money desperately for her daughter's defense. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Now you're getting it. Check who Natasha's aunt is. I searched Natasha's social media, found a photo from Christmas, her with an older woman. The caption, Christmas with Aunt Marie Delacroix. My stomach dropped. Natasha had helped her aunt steal school money and frame me to cover it up. I called Mr. Brennan and explained everything. He said we needed to go to the police immediately with the recording and evidence. Detective Walsh listened to everything in her office. She pulled up Natasha's file and Mrs. Delacroix's employment records. Then she made a call. 2 hours later, they arrested both of them. Mrs. Delacroix had taken $27,000 total over 3 months. She'd used my student aid access to make it look like I did it, planted $3,000 in my locker to seal the case. Natasha had worn my hoodie and used a duplicate of my ID card to access the safe on camera, but they'd made mistakes. The security footage showed Natasha's face for just 2 seconds when she turned, enough for facial recognition, and Mrs. Delacroix's bank records showed large deposits that matched when money vanished. During interrogation, Natasha cracked first, admitted her aunt promised her $5,000 to help frame me, said they chose me because I was a good student who no one would defend, someone whose word wouldn't matter against evidence. Mrs. Delacroix tried to deny everything until they showed her the recording I'd made of Natasha. Then she broke down and admitted it all. Her daughter's legal fees were $50,000. She'd been desperate, saw an opportunity with a naive student aide who'd never notice, thought she could steal enough and disappear before anyone caught on. But the school had noticed money missing and started investigating, so she'd accelerated the plan. Framed me fast and hoped I'd take a plea deal before anyone looked deeper. The charges against me were dropped immediately. Principal Davison apologized in front of the whole school at an assembly, said he should have investigated more thoroughly before assuming I was guilty, that students deserved due process. Mara hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe, but I still had questions. Who sent those anonymous texts that led me to the evidence? Detective Walsh had traced the number to a burner phone purchased with cash. No way to identify the buyer. I texted the number one more time. Thank you. Who are you? The response came hours later. Someone who was almost in your position. Mrs. Delacroix tried framing another student 2 years ago. Didn't work because I fought back. When I heard what happened to you, I couldn't let her win again. I asked for their name, but they never responded. The number was disconnected by the next day. Mrs. Delacroix got 6 years for embezzlement and fraud. Natasha got 2 years for conspiracy and evidence tampering. The school fired 3 other administrators who should have caught the missing money earlier. My record was expunged, but the damage to my reputation was permanent. Students who'd believed I was guilty stayed quiet when charges dropped. No apologies. Just awkward silence. But Mara organized a whole campaign on social media explaining what really happened. Other students shared it. Eventually, people understood I'd been set up. The scholarship committee I'd been worried about actually gave me an additional award for perseverance through false accusation. 6 months later, I got a Facebook message from someone named Jade. She said she was the one who sent those texts. She'd been Mrs. Delacroix's first target 2 years ago, a student aide just like me. Mrs. Delacroix had tried the same scheme, but Jade's mom was a lawyer who fought back hard. They couldn't prove Jade was innocent, but couldn't prove guilt either. Case was dropped. Jade had left Riverside and transferred schools, but kept tabs on Mrs. Delacroix. When she heard about my arrest, she knew exactly what was happening. She'd sent me those texts and emails, hoping I'd find the connections she couldn't prove 2 years ago. We met for coffee, and she told me the whole story. How Mrs. Delacroix had planted money in her locker, too. How Natasha had worn Jade's jacket and used a fake ID. How close Jade came to being convicted. Her lawyer found inconsistencies in the timeline that created reasonable doubt. But Mrs. Delacroix had learned from those mistakes. Made the frame tighter with me. Jade said watching me fight back and expose them gave her closure she never got. I asked why she stayed anonymous, and she said she didn't want to be involved officially. Didn't want to relive her trauma in court. But she couldn't let Mrs. Delacroix destroy another student without trying to help. That summer, I worked with a legal advocacy group helping other teenagers who'd been falsely accused. My case became a teaching example of how authority figures can abuse power and frame vulnerable students. I spoke at 3 schools about demanding evidence and never accepting guilt for something you didn't do. Senior year started, and the hallways felt different. Students who'd called me a thief now nodded respectfully when I passed. Some apologized. Most just pretended it never happened. I became president of student council and pushed for reforms in how the school handled accusations. We created a policy requiring independent investigation before any student could be publicly arrested. We installed better security cameras that showed faces clearly. We required 2 administrators to access the safe together instead of 1 person alone. Principal Davison supported every change. He knew the school had failed me. The $27,000 Mrs. Delacroix stole was recovered from her accounts. The school used it to create a legal defense fund for students who couldn't afford lawyers. Named it the Kingston Fund after what I'd been through. I didn't want my name on it, but they insisted. Said it represented resilience and justice. Graduation came, and I gave a speech about truth and patience. About how the right thing isn't always easy and justice doesn't always come fast. About trusting yourself when everyone else doubts you. About the people who help from shadows when you feel alone. My mom cried in the audience. Mara cheered so loud she got shushed. And I saw Jade sitting in the back row. She'd driven 3 hours to watch me graduate. Afterward, she hugged me and said she was proud. That night, I got one final text from the burner number that had started everything. You did it. Keep fighting for others who can't fight for themselves. Then the number went dead for good. College started that fall, and I majored in criminal justice with a focus on wrongful accusations. Everything I'd been through gave me purpose. I understood what it felt like to be presumed guilty, to have evidence stacked against you, to feel like the system wanted you to fail. My professors were impressed with my real-world experience. I wrote papers about my case and how it demonstrated flaws in juvenile justice. One professor connected me with an innocence project that helped exonerate people serving time for crimes they didn't commit. I started volunteering there sophomore year. The work was hard and often heartbreaking, but every time we freed someone, I remembered standing in that cafeteria with everyone staring at me. Remembered thinking my life was over at 16. Mrs. Delacroix sent me a letter from prison halfway through her sentence. She apologized for what she'd done, said watching her daughter go to prison had broken her and made her desperate. She'd convinced herself that framing a student no one would believe was victimless compared to losing her daughter. She knew now how wrong that was, that I'd been a real person with a real future she'd almost destroyed. I didn't respond. Some apologies come too late to matter. Natasha served her time and got released after 18 months. She posted on social media about second chances and redemption, talked about making mistakes as a teenager, never once mentioned my name or acknowledged what she'd put me through. I blocked her and moved on. Some people never take real responsibility, and I wasn't wasting energy on her anymore. Jade and I stayed in touch. She'd become a paralegal and worked with defense attorneys on wrongful accusation cases. We'd video chat monthly, comparing notes on cases and legal strategies. She'd found her purpose the same way I had, turning trauma into mission. 5 years after that day in the cafeteria, I was working at the Innocence Project when a case crossed my desk. A high school student in another state accused of embezzling from their school. The evidence looked overwhelming. Fingerprints, camera footage, money found in their possession. But the timeline had gaps. The student swore they were framed. I read through the file and my hands started shaking. Same exact pattern Mrs. Delacroix had used. I called the student's public defender and walked them through my case. Explained the setup, how to look for connections between the accuser and the accused. Within 2 weeks, they'd found it. The school's accountant needed money for medical bills, had framed the student aide. They recovered security footage showing the accountant wearing the student's jacket. Found planted evidence. Charges were dropped and the accountant was arrested. The student called me crying with relief and gratitude. I told them to pay it forward. Help the next person who gets trapped by false accusations. That night, I called Jade and told her about the case. She said Mrs. Delacroix's scheme had probably been copied from something she'd read about, that there were likely dozens of cases out there with the same pattern. We started documenting every similar case we could find, built a database, created a guide for defense attorneys to recognize the warning signs, shared it with legal aid organizations across the country. By the time I graduated law school, we'd helped expose 12 similar fraud schemes at schools in 8 states, each one targeting vulnerable students with limited resources to fight back. The pattern was always the same. Someone in financial authority stealing money, framing a student aide who'd never be believed, planting evidence and hoping for a quick plea deal. We'd disrupted that pattern and saved kids from convictions. The anonymous helper who'd texted me all those years ago had started something bigger than they knew. One person refusing to let injustice repeat had created a ripple effect. Mom came to my law school graduation beaming with pride. Mara flew in from across the country. Principal Davison sent flowers with a note saying I'd made Riverside High proud despite everything. And Jade sat in the front row holding a sign that said Justice Warrior. After graduation, I joined a legal nonprofit defending wrongly accused teenagers. My first case was a girl who'd been framed for stealing athletic funds. The school had security footage, her fingerprints, everything. But I knew what to look for now. Found the gaps in the timeline, the financial desperation of the real thief, the planted evidence. We got charges dropped in 6 weeks. That girl looked at me with the same relief I'd felt years ago, asked how she could ever repay me. I told her what Jade had told me, help the next person. The cycle continues. People who've been through false accusations helping others facing the same nightmare, building networks of support and expertise, making it harder for the guilty to frame the innocent, making it easier for the wrongly accused to prove their truth. 10 years after those officers walked into my school cafeteria, I was the lead attorney on a case that went national. A student had been framed for a crime so perfectly that even seasoned investigators believed the evidence. But I found the pattern, exposed the real criminal, freed the student. The case made headlines, and I did interviews about false accusations in schools, how authority figures exploit trust, how students need advocates who believe them. During one interview, the reporter asked if I'd ever found out who sent those anonymous texts that saved me. I said no, that they'd disappeared after helping me. The interview aired on a Friday night. Saturday morning, I got an email from Jade with a video attachment. She'd finally told me. The anonymous helper had been Jade all along. She'd used a burner phone and sent those messages because she knew what I was going through. She'd gathered evidence and guided me to connections because she couldn't let Mrs. Delacroix win twice. Jade had been my anonymous savior, the person who believed me when no one else did. I called her immediately crying. Thank you for everything. She said she'd done what anyone should do, helped someone who needed it. But we both knew most people don't. Most people look away. Let injustice happen because it's easier than fighting. She'd fought for me, and together we'd built something that helped hundreds more. Some stories don't end with perfect justice or complete healing. The false accusation followed me for years even after charges dropped. Some people never forgot or forgave, but I'd taken something meant to destroy me and transformed it into purpose. That cafeteria moment when everyone stared and judged had become the catalyst for a career fighting wrongful accusations. Mrs. Delacroix had tried to end my future. Instead, she'd given me a reason to fight for others like me. That was the ultimate revenge. Not against her specifically, but against every person who thinks vulnerable kids can be sacrificed without consequences. We fight back. We expose the truth. We protect the next victim. And we never stop believing that justice matters, even when it's inconvenient or complicated or uncomfortable. That's the legacy of that terrible lunch period when my name echoed through the cafeteria and my life imploded. Not the shame or the fear or the pain, but what I built from the wreckage. A career, a purpose, a network of survivors who became warriors for justice. Mrs. Delacroix had wanted to make me disappear. Instead, she'd made me unforgettable. If you're still here, you're a true fan. Show some support with a like and subscribe to catch the next one.